the Duxbury Board of Appeals on October 24th, 2024 at 7:30 p.m. We have one matter on the agenda. I will read the preliminaries here and then we'll get into the public hearing for that case. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted in person and as a courtesy via remote means in accordance with applicable law. Please note that while an option for remote attendance or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public and board members, the meeting or hearing will not be suspended and terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless required by law. This meeting will be recorded by the local scene, formerly known as pac-tv. Members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so by viewing the Duxbury Government Access channels Verizon 39 or Comcast 9. Viewers can also visit the local scene media/Duxbury, which is their website, for information about Duxbury programming, including streaming and watching replays on Duxbury YouTube. So on the agenda tonight, we have one matter involving 21 Hummock Lane. It's case number 2024-18. I will go through the application, read the public hearing notice, and so forth. So the Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing in the Mural Room, 878 Tremont Street, via Zoom on Thursday, October 24th, at 7:30 p.m. to consider the application of Martin Federici? I want to make sure I have the name correct. Thank you. For a variance under Articles 400 and 900, Sections 302, 401, 402, 410.4, and 906.3 of the Duxbury Protective Bylaw. The property is located at 21 Hummock Lane, parcel number 139-939-160 of the Duxbury Assessor's Map, consisting of 0.09 acres in the Residential Compatibility District and Flood Hazard Overlay District, and owned by Martin and Mary Ellen Federici. The applicants request the Board of Appeals grant a variance from Section 410.4 of the Duxbury zoning bylaw, side and rear setbacks and height, to allow a non-permitted shed to remain on the parcel. A variance is required. The application may be viewed on the town's website, under the Duxbury Board of Appeals page, or in the Municipal Services Department. Any individual with a disability may request accommodation in order to participate in the public hearing, and may request the application and any accompanying materials in accessible format. Requests for such should be made at least 3 business days ahead of time. So I've already explained that we're doing this hearing hybrid, remotely and in person, so I don't need to read that again. I'll now just kind of go through what we have on the case. So we do have an application, which I will ask the building commissioner in a bit to comment on whether that application is complete. But we have the application. We have some accompanying materials from the applicant, namely photographs, of which there are a few on a page, and then a site plan and an existing conditions plan. So those are the materials that accompany the application. We also have some comments on the submission to the Board of Appeals. This is from Steve and Kathy. Is it Urquhart? Is that how it's pronounced?
Urquhart.
Thank you.
It's me.
Thank you.
And it's, might as well since it's a meeting, it's Federici.
Oh, is it Federici?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to be Federici, just to...
That's why I asked if it was Federici, but thank you for the correction. Okay. We send this letter in support of the request for a variance at 21 Hummock Lane by Martin and Mary Ellen Federici. Thank you. We feel it is necessary to have a shed, as most properties do down in this area. The lots are small, and the majority of homeowners don't have a cellar or garage to house their outdoor things. We respectfully request your consideration and support of this application. We then have some other comments, some of which came in as late as today. To the Board of Appeals from Lauren, who is both our admin support and interim health agent. This property is connected to the Marshfield wastewater treatment facility. Thus, there are no concerns with the Board of Health in terms of placement of the shed with respect to septic components on the property. The Board of Health has no further comments. From the Planning Board dated October 8th, we have a memo at the meeting of the Planning Board on October 7th. The board voted unanimously via roll call to defer judgment on the variance application to the Board of Appeals, posing the question of why a variance is needed rather than dealing with it as a typical pre-existing nonconformity. We already read that one. Town of Duxbury Planning Board. This is a memo, looks like it's to the planning board, but in any case, we have it in our file. I'm writing this in support of allowing a zoning variance to keep an existing shed currently located at 21 Hummock Lane. My family owns the property directly next door, and the shed abuts our property line. We purchased the property in 2022 and do not have any issues with the location and placement of the shed. It does not impede on our space or any views in any way. Furthermore, it adds a layer of privacy for our yard that we greatly value and appreciate. Due to the location of the house and size of the lots on the street, there's no other position on the property that would allow him to relocate the shed. We hope the zoning board will please approve the variance and allow the shed to stay exactly where it is currently located. Sylvestra Buscemi, I think is probably how that's pronounced. If anybody has a better pronunciation, you are free to correct me. The Design Review Board submitted comments, I think today. The Design Review Board met last night to review the request of the owners of 21 Hummock Lane for a variance. After considering the materials filed by the applicant, we conclude as follows. As a general principle, we do not favor granting of variances in cases like this one. That being said, from the point of view of good design, as well as common sense neighborliness, it might be better for the community to encourage residents to stow their lawnmowers, toys, tools, and lawn furniture, garbage cans, and beach gear inside a shed like this one, rather than leave them strewn haphazardly in the yard. In other words, in this particular neighborhood, it might be preferable to allow this shed to be located within the setback area than to allow its contents to be left outside for everyone to see. And I believe the last one here is the Conservation Commission. And I hear an echo.
Sorry, that's me.
Okay. This is dated today from the Conservation Administrator. I reviewed the application and plans for the above noted project and determined it falls under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. The applicant will need to file an after-the-fact request for determination of applicability for the shed that was constructed sometime between 2020 and 2021, according to the attached near map imagery. This does not qualify as a minor activity since the entire property is classified as a resource area, parentheses, barrier beach. Minor activity exemptions only apply to riverfront areas or buffer zones. Thank you, and please don't hesitate to contact me if you have questions. It looks like that is it for comments that have come in. So with that, I would say, who is here to speak for the applicant? Is that you, sir? Okay, so name and address, please. Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Paul Marabito from Ross Engineering Company,
Yep.
Representing the owner and applicant. For the application we submitted to the board for a variance to allow the existing shed, which is shown on this plan in green, to allow it to stay in the location shown on the plan. The lot is an undersized lot. It's 3,996 square feet. The homeowner has owned the property for approximately 41 years. He also received approval from the zoning board for a special permit several years ago to raise the house and reconstruct it on piers in conformance with the FEMA flood standards. And it was constructed in the location shown on the plan in brown here. The house does meet the setback requirements. The shed is in the rear corner because it's at the end of the driveway, which is in this location here. In front of the house, there's a paved roadway, which is Hummock Lane, and to the north, there's another strip of paved area on a unnamed way. The shed, the purpose of the shed is to store common landscape tools and other materials for maintaining the yard. The shed in the present location is 1.8 feet off the side property line and 2.3 feet from the rear property line. There's also another shed on an abutting lot shown in red, which has similar setbacks. And there's another one on this lot, which is less than the required front yard from the way. A portion of it's actually in the way itself. The applicant is asking to keep the shed there because there's no other place to put it. He can't put it under the house because the enclosures aren't allowed under the house under the FEMA regulations. And the setbacks, the house is 16 feet off the property line. So if he put this shed here, he would be less than the required side yard setback, and the same applies for this side of the yard as well. The lot is flat. It's like I said, it's only 3,996 square feet, which is an undersized lot. The reason for the application is the owner received a letter from the building commissioner and zoning officer saying that was in violation of the setbacks, and that was in response to a complaint from one of the abutters. When I spoke to him, I noted that most of the other house lots on this street do have sheds, and most of them don't meet the side yard setbacks. I think it's this lot here, or the one down here. There's a shed right in the front yard here, and there's also a shed on this lot, which doesn't meet the setbacks from the property line. It's actually a portion of it's in the way, but the explanation for the other sheds being left in place was that they were pre-existing. I don't understand how they could be pre-existing sheds. I don't believe the building permit was ever applied for this one. As you know, in Chapter 40, Section 6, if a structure requires a building permit and the structure is not placed in the proper location, as long as 6 years goes by, the structure would conform. That didn't apply here because I don't believe they ever applied for a building permit for the shed. Massachusetts does allow sheds without a building permit as long as they're less than 200 square feet, but I believe Duxbury just passed a zoning requirement that you have to apply for a building permit for a shed now. Again, the shed's been there for 41 years, and since the time Mr. Federici purchased the property, and he's been using it to store his yard tools in it. The one thing he doesn't want to do is not have a shed and be forced to put the tools out on the lawn under cover of a tarp. That's his only other option if he can't keep the shed in this location. I think with that, I'll end and answer any questions the members may have.
So, I have one. You owned the house for 41 years?
It's not my house, I'm sorry.
Oh, all right,
Yes, that's 40 years deed.
all right, all right. I thought you were
We bought at the same time as him.
so you're a neighbor. Got it, all right, all right, all right.
So the house was torn down and rebuilt when?
I think in the last 10 years.
I vaguely remember
We
this.
filed for the permit for that.
Was the shed on the site plan for that permit?
No, I'm pretty sure, I actually think I even remember this case. You may have looked at it yourself, but
I looked at it.
I don't
It
believe,
happened before.
Before I was a commissioner.
I understand.
What?
You looked at the site plan for that permit, Jim?
I don't recall it. This has gone back a while. Let me just see if I have it. I don't know if I do in virtual land.
The property record card indicates it was new construction in September of 2010.
I won't have it.
14 years ago.
Yeah.
But the shed's been there for 41 years, so they kind of worked around this shed when they tore the house down and built a new one, maybe?
Probably moved it a couple of
The
times.
shed was not, part of that original permit, there was no shed on the proposed design
Right.
at all.
So the shed's not 41 years old then?
Oh, no.
No.
No, no,
Oh,
no.
no.
Oh,
Okay, I thought the application indicated that it was 41 years old, or it's
It
been there
did,
for...
it did.
The house is
you can't, the shed doesn't look 41 years
No, it
old.
doesn't, but the application did state that, and I
Maybe
wondered
if I
about
built
that.
it, it would. All right.
I'm not sure.
I'm happy to comment on.
Maybe there's
whenever
been a
you're
shed
ready.
there.
I will return to you in just a second, but I want to make sure the board's questions are answered. You get, we'll get to you, sir, but not quite yet. Do you guys want to hear from Jim? Because I think there's a history here.
Yeah.
Yes.
You got more
Why
information,
don't you go
Jim?
ahead?
Okay. First of all, I want to precursor this that I know that it's really challenging in that area to have sheds on properties. A lot of the sheds that do exist down there, and I can't speak for everyone, do exist for over 10 years, and some of them are pre-existing, and as we know, Mass General Law says if a structure is placed on a lot over 10 years, I cannot enforce that to be removed or anything. It's considered non-conforming now, and it's okay. So, that being said, I received a complaint on this property and another property that the shed,
Right.
a shed was placed, and the complaint came in on June 3rd, 2021. We went out the next day and witnessed the shed, took pictures of it, was brand new. And at that point, reached out, I put a stop work order on the house and spoke to Marty about the property, about the shed, that it required a zoning permit. I explained to him the challenges of that a structure, there's a number of things in the zoning bylaw, like a structure can't be placed close enough to another structure based on height, so there was a separation distance required that wasn't in compliance here. And then the second one was that it was placed within a setback, and that on his property, it's very difficult, actually, it's impossible to place this without asking for a variance. And at that time, he said, I will apply for a variance. Well, time went by, no action from Mr. Federici. We went out multiple times. I sent out 4 enforcement letters. From that point, I even saved a voicemail from Marty that I won't talk about what he said on that, but
Who's Marty?
Marty is the owner of the property.
Oh, okay.
So the property was placed illegally without the benefit of the permit. We notified him several times. I have fines. I went to the court magistrate recently. Nobody showed up for Marty, Mr. Federici, so they consider him in contempt for that. Meanwhile, I received a letter in the meantime with Marty asking me if I could hold off on any additional fines, and I said, not until I see some action. I received a letter from the engineer who prepared the site plan for this, and he sent a letter asking if I would hold off on fines, and I told him the same thing, not until I see some action in an actual application in for the board asking for a variance, because that was the only path I could see that this could be allowed. At that point, we received the application shortly after that, but meanwhile, I had been to court already, and here we are. So it's been a long trail. I'm not covering every single detail, but we have a long history with this one.
You have a lot of effort into this.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been down there multiple times, and
Got it.
at one point, I did receive this voicemail from Mr. Federici that laughingly said, I'm down in Florida, what are you going to do, arrest me? I see you sent me a letter for fines. And I'm like, look at it, we're not going to arrest you. I'm just trying to get you to a point of compliance here. I always try to work with them. There's a point where I'm really patient. I know the frustration down in that area, but at this point here, it's up to you guys to grant the variance. It is an incredible challenge down there, and it's interestingly enough, and I just have to speak to this because it's frustrating when I have to enforce something like this, when somebody does it, and now we're reactive to something again, right?
Right.
I got pictures of where the shed's placed, and just like it shows on the plot plan, right behind it, there's a fence, right on the fence line, that pre-exists. And it's interesting to me to have to enforce this, because the zoning bylaw doesn't allow for that. But here we are. So that's my story.
So if it's less than 6 or 10 years old, then
It's only
We can't-
2021 it
we
landed.
can enforce it.
Yeah, we can enforce that it be removed or grant a variance. in this case.
But it's not just the variance he needs for setback to property line, but coverage, because it's got a roof on it.
Probably.
We don't
We don't,
variances.
we had one of these cases about 2 years ago down on Marshall Street, and the outcome was the shed was removed.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And personally, that's how I feel this, I don't think we should spend all night or all week on this. He was informed right away, neighbors don't like it, it's against all the rules and regulations, so that would be my opinion on this project.
So we do have one abutter here who I think will probably speak in support, for the record, but
Yep.
I understand.
I read his letter.
Sir, you're welcome to speak if you want. Go ahead.
Oh, the
You have to go up there.
Oh, he's got it.
He's got it in his hand.
Oh,
The microphone.
Just introduce yourself, where you're from, please.
Hi, my name is Steve Urquhart. I live at 46 Ocean Road North. I just wanted to clarify the thing about the shed being 41 years. We all bought at the same time down there. They were all camps. The Winbergs owned a bunch of
Yep.
camps, and we all bought. She took the mortgages, God bless her, because otherwise none of us could have afforded it, so. And we all soldiered through, but there was a shed at his original house we bought in '84, so if he did in 2010 with a rebuild, is that what you said? Yeah, so you're talking almost 30-something years. The shed was sitting right there. And so is it shame on him because he didn't put one back right away with the house because it was there? And, they waited till they were in a better situation to get one, and so, you all know, you know the issues, and I don't want to say variances are granted all the time, and,
Ever.
We don't-
Ever.
Never.
I'm just saying for other issues, no,
Right.
That's what you're here for. You gave me a variance to build back in 2000,
We
No, we
didn't give you a variance,
non-conforming,
right.
yeah.
Special, very
Special
different.
permit.
Very
Special
different.
permit, whatever, I'm sorry. I was just
Okay.
wanted to clarify about that.
Yep.
Sure.
41.
Understood, and thank you for your comments.
And to explain and make it clear to you so other people don't get the wrong impression, we don't allow anybody to get any closer than they were previously. In other words, if there was a shed there and he wanted to replace it at that time, he could put it back in the same footprint. But if it didn't exist from 2010 to 2021, you're not grandfathered in that location. That grandfathering effect expires, I think, after 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years.
And we don't give variances.
Well, it went on a special permit back then. It may have been a different outcome had the shed been there. Had it been included on a site plan.
And make a little comment on that. I kind of recall this, but not 100% in my mind, that I think one of the conditions when they reconstructed their house was a coverage issue, and the shed was eliminated at that point for that reason. This is 2 years ago when I researched this, but I could look at that in depth. We just can't get access to the drive to get to that.
That would make sense. They want to make the house bigger, so they had to get rid of the shed.
Right, coverage.
Chairman, could I ask you a question to the chair?
I am Madam Chairman for the night.
You just got to go to the microphone.
Go to the microphone,
You got to
sir.
go to the microphone.
It's a brave new world, Jim.
I
Well,
have to
there's
be
nobody
swift,
at
don't I?
home, so it doesn't really, I guess it's on the recording.
Just as a point of information for myself and the owner, how is it that the sheds on the other lots, some of which are much newer than the one that's on the subject lot, how is it that they were found to be pre-existing if some of them are as old as Mr. Federici's or probably much newer than that. And they haven't been asked to be moved or removed.
You're asking us a question we can't answer. It's anything else out there is not in front of us right now. What's in front of us is this application. I just can't, we can't
Right.
comment on something that's not before
It
us.
goes back to that old rule, three wrongs don't make a right.
I think it's the fact that we don't have shed police in this town, running around and looking for them all.
The first question the owner asked me was, he said, you know, most of the other lots have sheds on them, and some of them are much newer than his, and they're there, and they're allowed to stay there because they were deemed to be pre-existing.
We can't comment on anybody else's shed, sir. What we have is this application in front of us.
We have to look at this with blinders on. We can't take into consideration who else has a shed or where their shed might be. We have to look specifically at this case and at the facts included in it.
Okay.
I do
The
think,
problem he has with this shed is that he can't meet the setbacks for the shed because of the location of the house where he put it when he had it raised and reconstructed.
And he probably wanted to use the coverage that that shed occupied
right,
to make the house bigger.
right.
Yeah.
That's an issue. I mean, part of the problem with this case and so many others that come in from these neighborhoods is that we're applying dimensional standards that are intended for 40,000 square foot plus lots because we don't have a district here that makes sense for this area. So we're trying to say this is RC, but anybody can see it's not RC. And so nobody out there is going to be able to comply with standards that might make sense on the west side of town. So, you know, that's a bigger discussion that needs to happen. It's a planning question, but I do feel badly for people who come in here from the beach area with these lots that they're never going to comply with the standards that we've adopted in this town because we just refuse to accept that we have areas that are different.
But why do you feel bad? They go buy these places. They know what they have when they bought them. This gentleman knew he had to tear down his house, puts up the new house, takes the coverage, and then puts a shed up.
I'll tell you why I feel badly, because I think we don't have realistic policy for this part of town. These are not 40,000 square foot lots. They're not even close.
3,200, 37,
Right, so,
right.
you know, we don't have zoning that deals with this kind of situation. Most communities do. We don't.
Right.
How would you change the zoning?
It's
Allow
to their
more-
benefit,
I'm
the
not doing
zoning
this.
now is to their benefit.
Would
If
you
anything,
allow,
it's gonna-
would you allow more than 36%
I'm
coverage
not
on the
gonna, I'm not
lot?
gonna sit here and plan for this area. I'm
just
saying it should be
curious.
done.
Just curious.
Right.
That's all
I
I'm
feel
saying.
we've been pretty generous in terms of special permitting.
I agree.
With respect to this area, largely when we had pre-existing non-conforming, which almost everything is, we've been quite reasonable about trying to permit people to build something that works. And I'm gonna be candid with you, I agree with Emmett in some degree. Folks chose to purchase in a particular area, subject to particular bylaws. And this one, quite frankly, and I was on the whole time, if you get a bigger house because we gave you a special permit, you can't then just go drop a shed on it. It just makes no sense to me.
Well, obviously, I don't agree, so.
No,
Whatever. I mean, I don't disagree about the variance question. What I'm troubled by is just case after case after case coming in here, even needing relief for nonconformity, because we don't have zoning that makes sense
Yeah,
in this part of
I
town.
do, I think I agree with you on that. It's just that we haven't addressed it, and we're pretty slow to address zoning changes.
Does the board need any other information to dispose of this case?
No, it's pretty cut and dry.
Madam Chairman, Can I make one other comment?
Certainly.
I believe in the preamble of the State Zoning Act, it says zoning is for the reasonable development of land in the Commonwealth. And in my opinion, having a house with a shed on the same lot as the house would be reasonable. The problem with these lots is that they're all undersized under the current zoning bylaw. You do have other sheds on the other lots in the neighborhood, which have the same issue with the lot sizes. And I know from looking at them, most of them do not meet the proper setbacks from the property lines or street line. And this shed on this lot is no different.
Right, you've said that
Nobody's
3
complained
times.
about the other sheds, but if they did, I'm assuming they would be back in front of you as well.
Let's start with
They were
Jim.
less than 10 years old,
Pardon?
if they were less than 10 years old.
If they're less than 10 years old.
That's Mass General Law. And so we have the technology today, just to clarify, to look back and see if, in fact, that existed in 2013. And it is an issue. I mean, we're not everywhere all the time. This lot and another one in the area came in as a complaint, and that's tends to be how we find them unless we're out there on a construction inspection or something like that. We notice them and we investigate them, but I can't speak to how the other ones exist. They do.
So does the board need any other information?
I don't.
Could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Aye, Judy?
I am it.
I'm Freeman.
Aye, Phil?
Are you voting on this?
I don't know, am I voting on this?
Well,
I
we came in
wait.
late, so.
He
I
was on the-
was
he was
here
on-
for the whole time.
Yeah, he was on the phone. so-
Oh, I didn't know.
He was
that.
on the Zoom call.
I was on the Zoom the whole
I didn't see
time.
your name up there. I'm so sorry. Pardon me, I was looking to you for a vote. I
No
guess we
worries.
looked to you. Did you vote, sir?
I did.
Thank you. Does anybody want to make a motion about this request for variance?
I would make a motion to deny the variance and uphold the building commissioner's ruling.
Second.
Any discussion?
I think we've discussed it.
Okay, so you do. Do you have handy open section 10 of chapter 48 for the criteria for variance?
I do. Well, I know
I left
some.
my iPad in the car.
I
so-
do.
You do, bless you. Section 10 of 48.
Okay, hold on.
Owing
Just
to
grab it.
conditions of soil, shape, topography, whatever.
Yep.
A literal enforcement would constitute a hardship.
Come on. Okay, so.
This is justified.
That'll be in a hurry.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Permit granting authority shall have the power after public hearing for which notice have been given by publication and posting and mailing to all parties. With respect to a particular land or structures of variance from the terms of the applicable zoning ordinance or bylaw where such permit granting authority specifically finds that owing to circumstances relating to the soil conditions, shape, or topography of such land or structures, and especially affecting such land or structures, but not affecting generally the zoning district in which it is located, a literal enforcement of the provisions of the zoning ordinance or bylaw would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner or appellant, and that desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent or purpose of such bylaw.
So, and that's where I guess I land, is that it's not unique to this property.
Yep.
It's not. Now, that doesn't mean the zoning there is right, but that's the zoning we have, that's the zoning we enforce. And, you know, we don't have the ability or the right to impose any other standards on this case than what's in the section 10 of 40A. So there may be a hardship, but it's not a unique situation. that area has issues that are different from the rest of the RC district, but the property itself is not particularly unique, as evidenced by this, just the arrangement of lots in that part of town.
Well, the term, to your point, though, the term unique can be applied to the rest of town. Like,
Sure. Yep.
so I think that's open to interpretation, but that was
Yep.
not argued before us. It's
The
just
only
a
other
comment.
interpretation I think about in this matter is hardship. I think about that. But was it self-created? If he came in and asked for a permit before this was placed, it would be a different scenario to come in here and ask for a variance. So did he create his own hardship?
So a literal enforcement of the provisions of this ordinance or bylaw would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise.
The precedent of coming in here, getting a special permit that lets you build wall to wall, and then coming in here later and saying, hey, let me do something else through variance because I got a tiny little lot.
Only by force,
Right,
not even, yeah.
right. That's just a hard no for me.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, let's vote on it.
Okay, just wanted to have that discussion. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye, Wayne.
I am
Judy?
it.
I, Freeman.
I, Phil.
Denied.
So Jim, what happens next?
I'll send out a letter to remove the shed. I'll give him, I don't know, I'll talk
How
to
much does
council.
he owe,
and see-
Jim?
What's that?
How much does he owe?
For fines? I'll waive fines when they get removed, when it's removed.
That's what I was gonna ask you.
Yeah.
What about court-
Typically, that's what I do. I'll uphold the fine and continue to fine until it exists.
What is the fine? X a day?
The last one, I think, is 25.
Dollars a day?
No, wait a minute. $25 per day, that was, yeah, since May 7th. That's the one I went to court on.
Don't you have court costs as well?
Not when not just my time showing up
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
It's in front of the magistrate, so. So typically what happens if, I'll talk with counsel, we'll prepare a letter to have him to remove the shed within X amount of time, and if he doesn't, then we'll continue to fine and probably seek a little more court action than normal, I would imagine.
Great.
And then
It's
he may-
frustrating. There's another one gonna be coming for it.
What about
For you
the-
that happened at the same time.
What about the trailers? Aren't they in the same boat as this?
That's being tried in court, my understanding right now. Talking to Amy, for some reason, I'm not 100% sure. I thought she said they're going all up to Superior Court on
Which
it.
one's that?
Sounds like
Marshall.
160 Marshall to me.
Excuse me.
Because we do have an enforcement to remove them, but
the
they
pig
appealed
farm.
it. And asked for a stay, so they've appealed it again,
They
and
have stayed.
At one time, when we were talking about those, there was a question of whether or not they were mobile or portable or whatever, because they had wheels on them. What if you put wheels on this?
you can't do it. It's not allowed by the bylaw.
Oh, okay.
Bylaw doesn't allow mobile homes, trailers, that kind of thing
Mobile
to be
sheds.
used on the property. That's really clear.
It's creative. I like your
What
thinking.
did you say?
Mobile sheds.
Mobile sheds.
Some mobile sheds.
Unless it's got a license plate.
What was the issue with 170 on the sheds? Or they're just not allowed with wheels on them?
160?
Yeah.
That was another matter. I disagree with the interpretations were there, that they still considered them mobile at that point. At the time we looked at it, we said if you get them in a compliant location, you immobilize them, attach them to the ground, as far as I'm concerned, it's just a structure that complies. So I disagree with some of the legal stuff that was before you guys.
But that's,
But you can jack it up and still put wheels back on them in 4 seconds.
Yeah, if you wanted to.
How they attach to the ground.
Cables, they drove big anchors into the ground, they got cables at the four corners.
Alrighty. Anything else, Lauren?
Do we need to do anything else? tonight?
Minutes, I think.
Okay.
The first set is just with Madam Chair, when we had the Zoom one-on-one it was September 12th, 2024. Technically, there weren't really even minutes, but you just opened and continued that case.
Right. So
Yes, you,
that's what the minutes are?
yeah. So I think only you can approve him.
Can we just approve these?
I move that Judy approve her own minutes.
Second.
Okay, the next is September 26, 2024. Tanya Trevisan, Emmett Sheehan, Freeman Boynton Jr., and Boris Goynich.
I'll move to approve those minutes.
I would second those, that.
Thank you.
Then the last set, October 10th, 2024. Wayne Dennison, Judith Barrett, Tanya Trevisan, Emmett Sheehan, Freeman Boynton Jr., and Boris Goynich.
I move to approve the minutes as drafted.
I would second that.
That's everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess we can
Adjourn.
adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Judith?
Aye.
Aye,
Keep up the
everybody.
good work, Jim.
Thank you.